Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. It's season 5, episode 1, and it's been 1 year. I didn't realize until I went into the hosting platform since the last podcast. A lot has happened since then. We've had a TOEFL summit and we've redone the site completely. So a lot of hard work there. So apologies for the delay with the podcast, but we're back up and running and we'll be putting out the podcasts weekly. So it's great to be in touch with you all again. So we have a great podcast today and our guest is Basil Tonks. So as this podcast was recorded last February, a few things have changed. Basil is no longer involved with MagniLearn, which we mention on the podcast, but I thought I'd leave it in as it is interesting and I think enlightening maybe for some of the listeners as well. So it's Basil Tonks, and Basil was born in Trinidad and Tobago in 1966. Basil moved to Canada in 1969, and after graduating from the University of Toronto, he pursued Asian Studies at the Graduate School of the University of British Columbia. Since coming to Japan in 1992, Basil has been extensively involved in education, serving as principal of an English language school, materials developer, teacher trainer, radio host, educational consultant, and more. Currently, he is founder and CEO at two companies, the Educational Venture Corporation and Maxwell Education Group, and founder and chief revenue officer at a third company, Potential Plus. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Hey everyone, buckle up for a new episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast, the one and only podcast made to help you launch your business or take your existing business to a level of success you could never have imagined. Whether you're a school owner, freelancer, publisher, or other entrepreneur, you're sure to pick up lots of actionable advice when you listen to the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. Remember to visit eflmagazine.com for great articles and features. Without further ado, here's your host, the founder of EFL Magazine, Philip Pound.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. And today's guest is Basil Tonks. And Basil is the CEO of Maxwell Education Group and EdVec here in Japan. Good afternoon, Basil. How are you today?
Great. Doing very well. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great. And I just... Actually, this afternoon I was feeling a little. I'd actually gone off for a long jog. I just did my dinner here, and I was feeling a little bit actually like having a siesta. And I was saying, "Oh no, I have to do an interview now." And then when I got on the call, immediately you put me in good spirits again. So I'm glad to have you as an interview guest. And you're in Yokohama, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Both of my companies are centered here in Yokohama, just a little bit to the southwest of Tokyo. Yeah, it's a great city to work out of. A little bit smaller than Tokyo, but very compact and lots of stuff to do. So yeah, we enjoy being here. And although we do travel around a lot, we're active all over Japan and then globally as well. So yeah, we're back here in Yokohama today to talk to you. So it's a great pleasure.
And Yokohama is as we said before the podcast, Yokohama is such a great place to visit. And if you ask Tokyo people, where's a good place to visit in Tokyo? And they say Yokohama, don't they? But Yokohama is not Tokyo. But anyway,
it's an honor.
It's an honor, isn't it? So tell me a little bit about your background, Basil. You're from Canada originally, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, actually, I have a bit of people ask me this, and it's always a little bit of a chore to explain. But I was actually born in the Caribbean in a country called Trinidad and Tobago, and I lived there until I was 3 years old. Moved to Canada when I was very young. Grew up in Canada, mostly in Toronto, around Toronto. But then, I've also lived on the West Coast in Vancouver as well. I studied a lot of languages, while in school in Canada. Obviously, we do French as a second language. I picked up some Spanish along the way. In university and undergrad, I did Chinese language for a number of years and became quite proficient in Chinese. I've forgotten most of it now. And then in grad school, I studied Japanese for studies, for research purposes. So after grad school, coming to Japan, that was back in 1992. So a different century. I've been here working out of Japan, but working around Asia and the world since then. Always in the language learning, kind of business. Started out in the classroom as a teacher, and then a teacher trainer, school manager. Got into product development. Back in the day, it was mostly textbooks, printed textbooks, and we used very high technology at that time, which was called the CD, if anybody remembers those. And we did a lot of work, publishing English language learning materials for Japan. In the 2000 kind of 3, 4, 5, we started to do a little bit of e-learning, kind of proto e-learning, I guess you would call it, and then made a real shift into digital materials in 2015. So my job now is mostly materials development and kind of promotion sales, focusing on kind of hybrid products. Kind of the paper and the digital products that have been linked together. So yeah, very exciting. It's still exciting to be, even though it's been over 30 years. It's still really exciting because there's lots of innovation happening now and lots of new things on the horizon. So yeah, I'm still enthused and really excited to go to work every day. So and also great to be here to talk to you.
Great, Basil. Yeah, there's so much there to unpack, but you talked a little bit about innovations, and of course, the one that everybody's talking about at the moment is Chat GPT, isn't it? I should have asked actually to do the podcast questions for this.
That's right. We could have just gone out for a beer and had it do it for us. Yeah, exactly.
Have you been using it? What are your thoughts on?
Yes, actually, I work with some partners who are based in Germany and Austria, and they alerted me to some of that new technology last year, about a year ago, or even a little bit earlier. And we were looking at it at that time, and it was quite impressive, even then. And my first thought as a publisher, as a materials creator, was, wow, I could get this to write some dialogues for me, or write some situations. But yeah, we have been following that very, very closely, and it really seems that this year, this kind of 2023, is the year of the artificial intelligence. That's where the keyword that you see everywhere. It's finally seemed to have come of age, and yeah, exciting, challenging. Of course, there's lots of uncertainty, but yeah, I'm always an optimist, and I always look for the positive in everything. So. I think innovations like that will impact us in a good way.
Yeah, so Terminator was not too wrong. They weren't too out with the dates, were they? So where could this go? I mean, there's a lot of doom merchants. They say could become self-aware and take over the internet. But where will ChatGPT AI be in 10 years?
Wow, that's a hard to predict,
an impossible
isn't it?
question,
Yeah,
but yeah,
somewhere that we don't even imagine right now would be my answer. I think what I see, being based here in Japan, I see a lot of challenges for the language teaching industry. We've got a declining, population, aging population, so there's more competition for students. It's harder, of course, for the same reasons, to find good teachers, to hire good teachers here locally. And especially now we've been facing this the sudden decline in the value of the yen. That's made Japan a less attractive place to work, harder to find good people to come and teach here. Additionally, I think we've been seeing, because everybody experienced a lot of new technology during the pandemic, there's an increased expectation that even within a group lesson, let's say, that you're going to get some kind of personalized curriculum or some kind of personalized instruction, and that's going to make it more and more difficult for a teacher in a group lesson. So lots and lots of different kind of challenges. One particular challenge again for this year, I think, is because of the recent kind of inflationary pressures here in Japan. A lot of families are seriously looking at cutting back their education budgets as well, for themselves and for their children. That's another problem. So, but I think AI has a place in solving all of those. Certainly, in terms of taking the work, the load off the teacher, and shifting that onto the machine. There's a lot of things we can do there. Keeping the teacher, of course, for those things that only a human being can really do. And in terms of providing that individualized feedback and instruction, definitely AI has a place there. And in terms of ensuring that families will choose us, over other things when they're thinking of their budgets, their family budgets. When we want them to choose us, we've really got to give them bang for buck, and really show them that the investment that they're making will have a return. And when we use an AI, we can do that because we have a lot of really hard data that we can show people to say, wow, you've improved here, or you've got better here. It's not fuzzy feedback. It's very specific. So I think in a number of ways we should be utilizing AI to solve some of the problems that we have, globally, but especially here in Japan. And I'm very optimistic that we can do that.
Yeah, can maybe make spider maps. The Japanese love those, don't they? Every company seems to use them for assessment or. Yeah. So I just want to go back a little bit to 1992. So where were you post boom? What were things kind of falling down at that stage?
Yeah,
we 192.
Yeah, that was definitely post bubble. So we didn't get the trips on the weekend down to Okinawa or whatever all the stories that you heard from from the people who had come before. So it was we were into that those tough times. But there was still a real genuine I think push to, at the time, I think people were calling it internationalization. That was the word that was used. Well, I don't think we used the word globalization. So, internationalization was the buzzword, and people were very interested in learning a new language. For their hobby, for work, for travel. Overseas travel was booming. So it was a great time to be teaching. A lot of enthusiasm amongst the learners as well. And of course, at that time, Japan was a very attractive place for for foreign teachers to come to teach as well. So met a lot of great people from all over the world. So it was a good time to be here, I think.
It was pre-internet, and it was what we say, collect call, you say in the States, Canada, probably, or reverse charges.
That's right.
To your parents or whoever. Yeah, when you were low on cash, or
Exactly.
And there was no Netflix, no Amazon Prime, so people would be sent videotapes. But I think the format is different, isn't it, for VHS? I think the Japanese use different one. Is it NTSC, wasn't it, in North America?
Yeah, you could not easily swap videos, that's for sure. I remember that.
Yeah, I know in Europe we had PAL, but like France had CCAM, didn't it? And it was all, and then there was all, not to be, I think Australia and New Zealand had PAL, but you couldn't take the VHS tapes to Australia and New Zealand anyway, but that's a bit of natsukashi. That's a bit of nostalgia for us there.
We're showing our age.
Yeah, we're showing our age. And you were involved in education, and then what happened business-wise? When did you decide to start out on your own and not just become like a tenured professor? Where was the fork in the road there?
Yeah, so I think that was in the late 1990s when I realized that I could have a lot more impact by getting out of the classroom, and not a greater impact, but a wider impact, let's say, by getting out of the classroom, getting involved in teacher training. So that's something I did in the late 90s. Really like that. Still do that, actually. Still enjoy teacher training, and then into materials creation, and that was really exciting because you could design things that would be used by thousands of teachers, or over the lifespan of some of the products I wrote and designed, that would maybe even 100,000 students. So really exciting, and that was the kind of it was really fun to do that. To materials creation, really enjoyed that, and enjoyed meeting teachers and telling them how to use new products. And yeah, so that's kind of where I went into business. To
So
facilitate
I
that.
don't normally like to break in, but just want to ask a little bit more about the
No,
materials development. How did you distribute? Was it early internet or was it through publishers? How?
yeah, really good question. We were a small company, and so we utilized kind of sales channel partners who would resell with us, and they had offices all over Japan and would have salesmen or saleswomen all over Japan. So we kind of utilized those networks because we were too small, and as you said, or as you alluded to, it was kind of pre-internet, and there really wasn't much you could do to promote yourself on the web yet. So yeah, that's how we worked in a very analog, traditional way.
Except, of course, for one of my previous guests, Dave Sperling, who started everything off, I think, and we talked about the early internet. So if listeners want to go back to that one, that was a bumper 2-hour session we had. Dave is really very, very interesting, nice guy. He does live up to the hype and the fame. So please do listen to that one. So yeah, materials creation. Then what happened after that, Basil?
Yeah, so that led, as we were creating materials, the internet began to be more useful to us. We could research things, we could get information, we could design the the materials online ourselves rather than asking a professional designer. Lots of new innovations. So kind of in the early, I think it was about 2005, we launched our first our online teacher training course here in Japan. And that was, at the time was quite innovative. Teacher training was always done face to face. And that limited the scalability, of teacher training. So we were able to do teacher training online quite effectively, and people loved it. Teachers loved it because they could do it at midnight after getting home from work, or early in the morning, or over Christmas holidays. And so we got into the internet a little bit early. I think earlier than some other companies because we were doing that. And
I just think, sorry
yeah.
for breaking in again, I'm just so
No.
interested in what you're saying is we talked about this before, about 2005. So what would that have looked like? Would it be MPEGs or early
Yeah.
Skype, or how was that
Right,
delivered?
right.
Yeah.
We kept it. It was all HTML, kind of coded. We had to code it ourselves, and they were pretty static web pages. Back in the day, we didn't really have many options for an LMS. No one, I don't even know if we called them LMS at that time. It was just some kind of system, and so we had to design our own. And the pages were pretty static, because we had to kind of anticipate that some people would not have. That was back in the day where when you hooked into the internet, you got that, you kind of dialed in,
Dial-up
so
tone, yeah.
yeah, and so some people did not have the ability to watch videos or those kinds of things. So it was very, very basic, but for people at that time, that was revolutionary. Just to be able to access high quality teacher training materials from their desktop or whatever they were using on their own time. And we did keep it analog in the sense that we had tutors, we had mentors who would follow each student through the course and kind of guide them. So we did keep the human element, but the delivery certainly, that was a great advancement.
Okay. So I'll try to keep the breaking into a minimum, and then after that, Basil, you were doing the online training, and what happened after that?
Yeah, so we got more involved with working. We had some successful products here in Japan, which were picked up overseas. So we started to develop some overseas businesses, which was great, and also. Developed out the different products that we had, kind of diversifying a little bit. Around 2015, we realized that the future was going to be some kind of digital, materials, and so we started to adopt different technologies to pair with our, really at that time was to pair with our books and our kind of our physical product. So they were kind of hybrid the hybrid products actually were the most successful. And I even think maybe they still are. People do like to have something tangible to hold on to when they're studying. If it's all digital, all online, it's a bit amorphous, and it can be a little disconcerting for some people. But yeah, we got into that quite heavily. So I would say, most of our products now are these hybrid digital and traditional paper, kind of products. So yeah, we built those out. One thing that we did get involved with, kind of around 2000, from 16, 17 onwards, was looking at Japanese language learning. Those of us in Japan have all struggled with learning Japanese. It is one of the most difficult languages for English speakers, anyway, to learn. That's a fact, and there are good reasons for that. But I've always had a soft spot for Japanese, and I wanted to do something for Japanese language learners, and realized that the products that were out there for Japanese were very, very old-fashioned, using technology that was outdated, and there's a lot of things that we could bring the best practices from English language learning. We could bring that into Japanese. So we put together some innovative Japanese products, which got kind of packaged up and ready to go right before the pandemic. So that was a little bit of a blow to our plans, and it's just now that's coming back, actually, right? This year it's a little bit of a resurgence, but so we diversified a little bit, out of English language learning into other languages like Japanese, and we even put together some things for Japanese language learning for Japanese people, so kokugo, as it's called here in Japan. So yeah, we diversified a little bit out. Of course, the pandemic was very challenging. A lot of our clients here in Japan suffered quite badly due to school closures, declining enrollments, and everybody says, "Oh, well, as a materials creator or a digital services supplier, you must have had a boom time, just like Zoom." And actually, it wasn't like that. It was quite tough for us as well. The first thing that gets cut when a school is in trouble is usually the materials. You don't want to fire your teachers. You don't want to, close your locations. So materials tend to get cut first. So, it was a rough couple of years. But out of that, we learned a lot, and we also met a lot of people online. The whole, what we're doing today, talking online. This was something that we didn't really do before 2020. So that opened up a lot of new possibilities. So we made, new partnerships and new friendships all around the world. And coming out of the pandemic. Well, I don't know if we're out of it yet, but we're part way through.
Seems to be, does it? Yeah.
No,
seems to be dragging us back in all the time. It's like the crabs in the bucket or something, isn't it? Yeah.
Coming out of that in last year, we decided to set up a new company, which was the Maxwell Education Group, focused more on international projects, and also some other different segments here in Japan, like the very young kids, very young learners, and corporate training and things like that. So we have diversified out not only in product but also in different market segments as well, and geographical locations as well. So yeah, it's been an exciting, turbulent but exciting couple of years, and I'm quite hopeful now for this year that we're going to see a lot of new developments in a positive way.
So I'd like to go back again. I'm really going down memory lane today with a lot of things. I'm feeling very nostalgic for some reason. But I just want to go back to the foundation formation of your company, how that came about. Was it kind of an organic thing that you were kind of doing a little bit of freelancing? You were serving a demand, and then suddenly you said, "Oh, well, we have a business here and we can grow it organically." Or did you set out, look for venture capital and
Sure.
get...
Yeah, it was an interesting story. There was one of my clients who I was doing some training for, was a large prep school, exam prep school, juku as we call them here in Japan. And around that time, the founder retired, and his son took over. And the son wanted to put his own stamp on the company and do something new. And one of his ideas was to create something that could be used to teach communicative English, at cram schools, at prep schools all around Japan, and have materials that could be used by Japanese teachers. They wouldn't necessarily have to be used by foreign teachers, by native speaking teachers. So he talked with me and said, could we do something like that? And I said, yeah, I think we could. We could definitely, with this new technology that we have called CDs, CD players, we could do
optical
something.
Discs was, I remember. There's another one.
The bigger ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, I mean, that was the standard then, was cassette tapes for the classroom. And I remember in the early days, people would call me up and say, "Where do I buy a CD player? Like, where do you get them?" And I had, well, go to the electronics store. So it was very, very new technology. So that was a partnership between him and I. And we said, okay, let's create a company and do something really innovative. And lo and behold, it worked really well. The Japanese teachers were really excited to be able to teach more communicative English. And I think it was a breath of fresh air for them. So that was the kind of it was a partnership between my Japanese, business partner and myself. So yeah.
It's great. And it's great to have customers ready to go, isn't it?
Oh, it's always nice to have cash in the pipeline.
But, that's something a lot of business owners struggle with, is building products that nobody wants. But, I can see that could be a problem in reverse, is having, customers, but, is it a right fit for them? Will it transfer into other markets? Is it an illusion? They're just buying it as, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? How you iterate?
Yeah, I think that back in the 1990s or early 2000s, when we were creating all kinds of new products, people would come to us and ask us, okay, what's new? Please come and show us what you've got. There wasn't as much access to information as there is now. It was harder to find information. You would have to get a catalog online, not online, excuse me, get a catalog sent to you, or you'd get a flyer in a magazine or something like that. So it was a little bit. People tended to go to an authority, as authoritative source, to get good information. So at that time, we were able to guide people, and say, this would be a good fit for you, or we think this product is good for you. As we've kind of progressed into the internet age, there's so much information available. It's really, really difficult for our customers to even know what they want. I always tell this story. I read somewhere in an economics textbook about a supermarket that had 8 different kinds of salad dressing on the shelves, and salad dressing was selling very well. So they decided that they would increase the shelf space, and they put in 24 salad dressings, and lo and behold, the sales from salad dressings dropped, and they figured out the reason was there was so much choice that people were getting a kind of cognitive overload trying to decide what dressing to choose. And so they would just leave without buying anything. It was just too much effort.
Like Japanese stationery store, isn't it? Where you go looking for a pen and you have.
Exactly. This is the point. And that's kind of where we are now. We have so much choice, so much information, that people are almost paralyzed. They don't know what they need. They don't know. They can't. And I find people saying to me now, I'm just going to ask my friend what he's using, and if he likes it, I'll use it. We're back to that. That level now. Very, very interesting, because there's so much information that it's overwhelming people. So it's a challenging environment now to get your message across and to guide people and help them find the products that are good for them.
Okay, so tell me, you started EdVec and then Maxwell Education Group. So We talked about EdVec and how you came up with the materials development, but tell me more about Maxwell Education Group, how that's different, what you do there.
Yeah, sure. So Maxwell is is a little bit different. We're more internationally focused. So we don't just think domestically. We're operating.
That's great for the exchange rate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. Let me tell you. when we get foreign income, it's great, but when we have to pay Japanese royalties out, it's not so good. Anyway, yeah, Maxwell is more internationally focused. And that's great. So we're kind of active in a few different markets. We're involved we're doing some work in India. We're working in Spain, in Europe, in South America as well, around Mexico and Colombia. And so we're kind of active around the world, which is one big difference. And the second thing is that we do focus on slightly different markets here in Japan. EdVec is focused on the kind of after-school tuition, center market, and Maxwell is looking at kindergartens and daycare centers and university students and corporate training. So things that EdVec doesn't do. And the reason for splitting those, is because the kind of skill set and the type of people that you want to be involved in those businesses are actually a little bit different. They need to speak in a different way. They need to know a different language. They need to, connect with the customers in a different way. So it's kind of a different skill set. So we separated those out. And then the last thing, which was kind of, was a bit of an afterthought to begin with, that we do in Maxwell, we do some consulting work. And we didn't really think this would be very, one of our key businesses. But lo and behold, over the last year, we've had a lot of inquiries about consulting, and from some fairly big companies. The top two Japanese education companies, which probably everybody in Japan will know, are our clients. So and I think the reason why they came to us is that they feel a need to innovate more quickly. And they do want some external kind of not pressure, but external ideas and impetus to change and to innovate internally. It's just there's not enough. When you're in a big company, it's kind of like you're on the Titanic. You're heading towards that iceberg. You're trying to turn, and wow, it takes a long time, doesn't it? So that's what we've been doing. We've been doing a lot of consulting as well, which is great. And so Maxwell is kind of a bit of a different kettle of fish, but very interesting.
So Basil, talking to you about your companies, I mean, you've just gone from success to success, but I'd like to talk a little bit about the lean times. As for entrepreneurs or business owners, there's always, of course, we talked about the pandemic was a bit of a body blow, wasn't it? But there's self-doubt, there's as you say, adaptability. You have to change, and so can you tell me something about some difficulties you've had, what you've learned from them, how you've overcome those?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely been it's not been an easy journey. There's certainly been some very, very tough times. I think when you're in materials development and you're providing materials, there is a life cycle to a product. And it can be for any number of reasons. Here in Japan, I do feel that teachers and administrators get tired of a product after 3 or 4 years, and they want to try something new. The product may be fresh for the students every year who are coming in, but for those teachers who are teaching that same lesson again and again and again, they just kind of get tired of it.
Absolutely. That's what to say the least.
And I think we've all been there. Oh, it's that one again. So when you have a very successful product, you try to pour more resources into it, and you build it up as quickly as possible. But when that life cycle ends, transitioning, moving those resources to something else, or building up a smaller product your secondary product that you've had on the back burner. This takes time, and it doesn't always go successfully. So you're sometimes you have too many staff. You've got people with different skill sets. Sometimes you have 10, 20,000 books left in the warehouse that you just can't get rid of anymore.
That actually came into my mind. I was thinking about Atari, when they buried all the games in the desert. I was thinking, did Basil bury like course books and CDs somewhere?
I think it's not something I'm proud of, but we've certainly created enough of garbage, I think, from our businesses. It's a sad thing when that happens. As a creator, you don't want to do that, but sometimes it just that collapses over a few months, and you just can't adjust quickly enough. So very difficult. It's easier to pivot when you have digital products. Obviously, you can retool or redesign more quickly. There's been some lean times, and we've been we've taken some hits over the years for sure. So not at all. And you do your best to predict and to anticipate, but like I said, these days there's a lot of volatility, and people don't really actually know what should come next, what they want next. So there's a bit of a gamble when you're creating a new product these days.
So as I've said to guests in the past that that live in Japan, or Japanese guests, contrary to what people think, Japanese education was a little bit technophobic sometimes, wasn't it, in the past? And I've apologies to those who've heard it before, but you can still buy VHS and CDs in the convenience store. But
the fax machine,
the fax machine is still going, yeah. Or there's a Windows 95 in the corner of the staff room. I heard somebody saying, in all seriousness, but I think, with the pandemic and people going online, working from home, it's really changed the Japanese way of thinking about technology. Is that your experience as well?
Interestingly enough, my kind of take over what's happened, on what's happened over the last 3 years. In 2020, everyone was scrambling to, maintain continuity of service. Just grabbing whatever tools were available at hand, and some people grabbed Google Docs, and some people grabbed Meet, and Teams and Zoom, and this and that, and just cobbled things together. Now, unfortunately, that there was a lot of that was not conducive to high quality education. There was a lot of dodgy stuff going on because people were just not used to it. We're not ready for it. As a result, there was a real reaction to that in 2020, late 21, 22. And I heard a lot of people saying, as I thought, digital online lessons or digital learning is not as good as, face-to-face learning. We need to go back to face-to-face. Face-to-face is the way. The teacher is face-to-face is the most important. And there was a real pushback on a lot of the technology. Now, what's happened though in the last, actually, I would even say the last 2 months, is that people have realized that there is no going back to 2019. That world, that beautiful nostalgic world that we all dream about, won't come back. It's not possible to do that. And so people now do have a more realistic and pragmatic way of thinking, which is, okay, technology is not going to solve everything. It's not going to be, it's not the be all and end all, but we do need it. This is something really important. We need to include that in our lessons, in our businesses in a good way, in a sustainable way. And people are thinking about it seriously now. And I think this has just happened in the last few months, to be honest with you. So I'm hopeful that we've got to a good point now, a more realistic kind of point where there's not that rosy, technology can solve all the problems view, and there's not that very, the Luddite, view, let's throw it all out. We need to go back to chalk, and blackboards. So I'm hopeful now.
Good. So I wanted to move on a little bit about MagnaLearn. So you told me the story of your daughter. If you'd like to go through MagnaLearn and what
Yeah,
happened
that's
there.
right. That's right. So we were fortunate enough to be introduced to a very interesting new platform called MagnaLearn. So that's I guess that's magnify plus learning. MagnaLearn. We were introduced to MagnaLearn by a fellow consultant here in Japan who said, "This is a really good product, very innovative. It's something that you might want to consider for EdVec and for Maxwell." And we took a look at it, and we were fortunate enough to meet the creators of MagnaLearn. MagnaLearn is developed. That's the name of the company that also develops the platform, but they're based in Israel. The product was designed by three three doctors from the Hebrew University, who were very much involved in natural language processing, cognitive science, AI development, and they put together this amazing platform. But not easy, to meet up with them. But I'm fortunate to meet up with them last year here in Japan. Did a deep dive into the platform and really liked it. There's a lot of unique features. So we thought, well, this could be something really useful for Japan. It actually matches the needs here in Japan really well. So let's do some representative agreements. So we signed some agreements with MagnaLearn late last fall, and then that was really good. So I don't often when I come home, I don't often talk about business, with my family. But when I came back at the end of that day, I said, to my wife, I said, I signed a new product today, which is really good. It's called MagnaLearn. She said, "Wait a minute, I've heard that day before somewhere." And she said, I think our daughter, her name is Juno. Juno's using that." And I said, "What? Really? Can you show me?" And she pulled it up, and I said, "Yeah, that's it. That's the same screen." And it turned out that my daughter was attending a school that was the earliest adopter of MagnaLearn technology here in Japan. So I was able to ask, from a parent's perspective as well. I was able to ask my wife and my daughter, "What do you think about this?" And they seemed pretty positive on it. So that was a nice affirmation of of the product. So we were fortunate to have that connection, and we've been taking the platform out, introducing it to universities, corporate trainers, after school tuition centers, English conversation schools, a whole bunch of different market segments since last fall, and getting some pretty good response. So there are some unique things about it that I think will resonate very well here in Japan.
Okay, and how does it work? Give me a thumbnail
Oh,
there of. You don't have to go
the
into
1 minute, the 1 minute version. um, so I love using metaphors. My father was actually a priest, and when he got up to preach every Sunday, full of metaphors, right? I love using metaphors. So I would say there are other AI kind of driven platforms out there. So MagnaLearn is an AI driven platform, and there are other platforms out there. But the platforms that we have now are kind of like an X-ray. When you go to the doctor, you can kind of see the bones and some outlines of some tissue, and it's kind of fuzzy, but if you're trained, you can kind of figure it out. MagnaLearn's AI is like an MRI. It really drills down into each student's learning processes and results, and really takes a fantastic picture of where they are and then where they need to go. So it starts off with some, I've been calling it kind of nano learning or nano AI, down to a very, very small level. This technology will identify strengths and weaknesses. And that is done through a process of analysis that's done by the artificial intelligence, and the unit that is used to measure those skills and knowledge is called a knowledge unit, a KU. And these knowledge units are extremely small pieces of the English language or English language ability or knowledge. Could be a vocabulary item. It could be a syntax rule. It could be a grammar rule. It could be some phonetics. They're very, very small units. So there's thousands and thousands of knowledge units. So the AI takes a snapshot of that person, and that's done continuously all the way through the learning, and then creates output focused language learning activities for that person to improve, to get better. So the kind of the practices that are created are done in real time based on those knowledge units that we just talked about, and they're output focused. So it's not like just choose A or B, or multiple choice question or something like that, or drag and drop. You're actually writing English, you're speaking English, you're reading for comprehension. You're doing really, really quite interactive exercises. And through that process of constantly measuring someone's ability and knowledge, and then creating those pinpoint exercises for them to get better, you can see just dramatic improvement in language. The data that we currently have, it's quite a lot of data. I wrote it down because I can't even remember. It's just crazy. I mean, we have 3.4 million exercises have been completed. There's 500,000 learning hours logged into the system now, and that's not just staring at the screen. That's actually studying. And from that, the data shows that you can cover a curriculum up to 6 times faster than you would with a traditional learning, and you can improve your accuracy as much as become twice as accurate in a very short period of time. So it really, really cuts out a lot of the kind of wasteful kind of activities that slow people down, that bog people down. It really helps people to get better quickly, and I think that's the kind of technology that people will want going into the future. Cut down, the time that I need to spend, cut down the money that I need to spend, give me results, and really help me to improve my language. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that this kind of new technology will be very successful here in Japan.
Well, that sold it to me because we talked earlier about distinguishing yourself and being in a crowded marketplace, but I think this is something very different.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that comment. I think so too. I think the technology is mature enough now that it does. You can feel it making a difference. When we did some trials here, we had several students, kind of start their first lesson on MagnaLearn. Within a few practices, few exercises, they were doing completely different things on the screen. A, B, and C all had different content. Because each of them had strengths and weaknesses that were different from the other. So that was something really, really impressive. You could see it immediately. You could feel it immediately. The other thing that I found really impressive is this artificial intelligence doesn't just focus on what you can't do. It also generates supplementary activities to kind of stretch you, to stretch your abilities, in the areas where you are successful. So you're not just kind of you're not kind of being held back by the AI. It's actually allowing you to actually work at a higher level than you normally would have. So I think that's really interesting as well. It's not just focusing on the negative; it's also kind of augmenting the positive.
Probably necessary as well. I mean, who wants to unending challenges or be reminded of failure? It's discouraging, isn't it?
It is when you're just getting that negative feedback.
Yeah.
You didn't get that right. You didn't do that right. And that's we know that's not a good way to learn. So focusing on the positive and augmenting that, I think, is really, really important. For people going forward. So Yeah, I think the AI has come a long way. Yeah, the other thing I think is that's really good about MagnaLearn is that there is no fixed curriculum for this product. Um, let's say that we're running a school together, the Yokohama English School, and we have a certain textbook that we're using. We can take that textbook, we can show it to MagnaLearn, and we can get them to adjust the curriculum in the AI so that it matches our textbook. The scope and the sequence will match up, and so students won't be doing something completely different. They'll be doing something based on the curriculum that we already have. So this is really nice. It's another way of personalizing the system to people. So that's also a very exciting thing too when I describe that to people. That you don't have to swap anything out. We will come and match you. You don't have to come and match us. So that's something a little bit different, I think, as well.
Okay, so it can complement what's already been offered. Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, I think that's the best way of using this. Would be, we don't want to replace the human lessons, the human interaction. But it is a very, very effective way to reinforce all of those things that you've been doing in the classroom, according to each person's ability and needs. So it would be very well used in that way.
So it's kind of like the Karl Marx of AI, is that right? Each according to his ability or something, yeah, or needs.
As I was saying that, I thought, I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah. Is this just for institutions? Do you sell a B2B, or will it be eventually for individuals as well, consumer markets?
I think at the moment we're it's definitely a B2B product. I think that's where it's best positioned. But I could see that in the future there could be some potential for direct to consumer sales. There's another way of using MagnaLearn, which is to administer a test, and a kind of an ability test, and then have
which you already do offer, don't you? I'm looking at it here, the Global English Test. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's that's the right test. And what we do is that we administer that, and then the AI will create 100% personalized curriculum for that person based on their test results. So that's not related to any kind of textbook that's being used in the classroom or any curriculum used by the teacher. It's just my current ability and knowledge. So you can go to 100% kind of personalized learning. So that's a possibility for the future. But definitely, both of my companies, we are very much dedicated to serving the educational community and supporting the teachers, supporting the school owners. So that's where we're focused right now.
So Basil, the chat has been fascinating. I know you have to get away pretty soon, and I said I'd get you home on time, and I will. We've got a couple of minutes left. So Basil, what's for the future?
Wow. This year, I think is the year of artificial intelligence. We have a number of different products that we're bringing to market this year. All have some element of AI in them. And this is all the way from, grading open-ended questions on a speaking exam to full courses of study like MagnaLearn. So, I'm really looking forward to this maturation of the AI technology to see where it takes us. And I'm always an optimist, and I'm hopeful that this is not going to be. It's going to be disruptive, but in the end, we're going to create a better classroom, a better world for the learners and the teachers, of those people that we all love. So, I'm very confident about that, and we're very hopeful about that, and that's what we're going to aim for this year.
Fantastic! This is like the Japanese New Year countdown, isn't it? We're getting the right on time. So, Basil, thanks again.
Thank you, Philip. It was a great pleasure to be with you. Look forward to talking with you again soon, I hope.
Thanks for listening to the EFL Magazine Business Podcast with Philip Pound. For more great advice and resources, check out eflmagazine.com. If you found this podcast helpful, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time.